the goal is not to eradicate the emotion. The goal is to feel the emotion and ultimately to soften it. So to bring it to a different level of intensity. And curiosity is a soft form of fear. Curiosity is a soft form of anxiety. Curiosity is about embracing the unknown. It's about bringing in new information.
Hey there, lady. I'm Molly Connolly, your coach and hype woman on this journey to transforming your love life. Whether you're navigating life after divorce, exploring the world of online dating, or deepening the connection in your committed relationship, I'm here for you. Why me? Because I walked this path myself, from filing for divorce just 3 years into marriage to swimming in the online dating pool into my late 30s, and finally marrying the man of my spreadsheet dreams right before the world changed forever. I've seen it all. As a relationship coach, I empower women to create love lives filled with clarity, connection, and confidence. This podcast is all about building a strong foundation for a healthy relationship with yourself and your future partner. I believe the man of your spreadsheet dreams is worth the wait, and together we'll ensure that you are ready for him when he arrives. Join me each week as we dive into insightful discussions and hear from savvy guests. You'll gain the courage to break free from limiting beliefs, recognize and change patterns that are holding you back, and learn to prioritize the number one relationship in your life, the one you have with yourself. So let's embark on this exciting journey together. Welcome to Reinventing the Arena. Hey there, lady. Welcome to the Reinventing the Arena podcast. I am thrilled to be here with you today as I have a guest joining us. Dr. Ann Ramsdell is a free-spirited, crystal-wielding developmental biologist who is fascinated by our origins, physical and metaphysical, and how they shape our experiences and outcomes throughout our lives. In the lab and beyond, Anne's favorite experiments are the ones that lead us to more wonder and fulfillment. She is a fan of taking playful, imperfect action and has learned from empirical data, aka screwing up, and even missteps help us get us to where we want to be. One of her central beliefs is that joy is everyone's birthright, and that in order to experience it, we have to go out there as well as deeply in there to create it. A proficient pattern detector and problem solver, Anne loves teaching clients how to blend intuition and analytical ability to overcome obvious and not so obvious roadblocks, emanating from multiple sources, including but not limited to loved ones, culture, society, and hold on, our own beautiful, smart, funny, courageous, and deserving selves. Welcome, Anne. What a delight to have you here with me today.
Thank you, Molly. I appreciate the invitation and I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, gosh, I just like how we were talking a bit beforehand. Months ago, I connected with Ashley Rath, because I've heard of her nonprofit, Rebuild a Bitch, that helps women impacted by cancer. And when learning more about what she offers, I've heard about the coaches who help these women during their diagnosis. And that's how I discovered you and your story. Can you share more about yourself with the ladies here today?
Oh, sure. First, I just want to dovetail. I'm a massive fan of Rebuild a Bitch. I think that nonprofit is like spot on supporting women who need psychosocial support. Facing a diagnosis brings a lot of complicated, complex, and intense feelings. And I'm just really grateful that there are resources like Rebuild a Bitch that are out there helping women. So my story, we have to go all the way back to 2009, Molly. That was my original breast cancer diagnosis. And it was stage 3. So not imminently terminal, but not, a cakewalk. At the time, I was a medical school professor. I had an active research laboratory. I was scientifically literate. And yet, I knew virtually nothing about breast cancer. And so one of the first things that I started doing was reading. So I started reading the biomedical literature, the journal articles, educating myself on it. And that led to all kinds of really cool things. But the thing that was missing was the psychosocial support element, right? So I could use my curiosity to learn more about the disease. And ultimately, I ended up actually researching the disease, reconfiguring my lab. That's a whole other story. But that part about what to do with the feelings, my world was literally upended. And the diagnosis came on the backdrop of I had literally just about a month prior separated from my then husband. A month before that, our older son had been diagnosed with autism. So, like when I say my world was like completely uprooted, it really was. It felt that way. And I really had no idea how to even get through day to day. So the first thing I did was I signed up for therapy, which was great, but that in of itself wasn't sufficient either. The other part that really helped me was I picked up a book in the personal development. This is back in the day when we actually went into bookstores. And it was the author of that book. It was a combination of having, a good therapist who told me, like, look, man, this is not the time to be working. This is the time to really be focusing on your treatment and getting through and seeking whatever amount of pleasure that can make your day better. It's like, okay, great, but that sounds a little out there. Like, lady, like fun? What the fuck is that? So there is that. But the book that I picked up, the author is Martha Beck, and she ended up really having such a profound influence on my life because the book that I picked up, Finding Your Own North Star, was conveying essentially a similar message. Slow down, pay attention to what is aligned and authentic for you, start doing more of that, and start doing less of the stuff that's not. So if it feels good, and I don't mean like in an imitation junk food way, I mean in a real solid, visceral, like, oh yeah, this is fucking true. Do more of that. And the stuff that doesn't fall in that category, do less of that. And so that combination is really what oriented me to the world of coaching and personal development and mindset. And to the extent that once I was, recovered from nearly 2 years of treatment, I actually went and studied with Martha Beck and became trained and certified as a life coach. So that was in the early days. Now, I did experience some metastatic recurrence in February of 2020. And the first thing I did was decline treatment because I was like, you know what? I've been through this before. It coincided with the onset of the pandemic. I was like, I just want to be comfortable. I just want to be able to I was on sabbatical at the time. Just want to be able to get back home, spend time with my children and loved ones, and kind of, transition out of how to, a reasonably good life. Fortunately, the oncologist that I had came back and said, I could offer you a different treatment, not standard care treatment, but a different chemo that would have fewer side effects. And I said, you know what? That sounds pretty good. I'll try it. Sign me up. So I did that. I still fully expected to die. My prognosis was very, very grim. And so my kids and I, lived at a beach house for a year. Treatment worked, not in regards of curing my disease. Metastatic breast cancer is incurable, but it extended my life. My quality of life was really good. And so I decided, you know what, it's time to resume living again. So the first thing I did was I moved back across the country to Seattle, which had always been a dream of mine to live here. And I went back for master coach certification and training, again with Martha Beck, and expanded my practice at that point to start serving women with a cancer diagnosis. So I think the commonality between those two experiences is that I am really grateful that I had enough tools and understanding to really ride my curiosity. And that helped keep me out of victim mode, if that makes sense. It allowed me to creatively respond to what was in front of me, even stuff that I didn't like. It still allowed me a more empowered response to those circumstances. And so that's what I really enjoy helping other women do, is figuring out how they can, in an empowered, informed, and authentic way, respond to whatever it is they're facing.
Wow, and your story, taking us all the way back to 2009 and walking us through all of the bumpy, but also empowering, like you said, moments that you went through to, come and create the offerings, these services for women who are going through similar moments in their diagnosis, is just sometimes I feel like unheard of. I know that coaches do that and therapists really do hone in on working on certain areas that then maybe they lived through, but doing it while still having the diagnosis that you have, as well as still receiving treatment, is just above and beyond, like a champion in the space for both women's health, cancer diagnosis, and coaching in itself. So I just want to stop here and just commend you for all that you do and have done and going to be continuing to do for women in your space. So it literally is such a pleasure to have you on the episode and podcast today. So thank you even for just sharing the story. There's so much to that. Like, you should write a book. You could really do that.
Oh, funny you say that. That is the next thing on my bucket list. Thank you, Molly. It's still really hard for me to receive compliments. Thank you. I'm feeling into my body, and I'm just sitting here going, oh yeah, it's okay. It's okay to receive this. Thank you.
Yep. And you're so deserving of it. Like, that's another part of your bio, talking about that with the ladies that you work with. They're deserving of it. And it's just everyone is a mirror, and they're a reflection of what we also deserve for ourselves. So I love that for you.
Thank you.
And now I was going to say, like, because we're talking about it too, your coaching programs are so thoughtfully created, as it depends on where the client is within their own journey of breast cancer. Yet each one that you have focuses on the relationship to self. So how do you guide others in reconnecting with themselves after such a life-altering diagnosis like breast cancer?
So remember the developmental biology part.
Mm-hmm.
So that is my first scientific expertise. And my favorite part of developmental biology, embryology, is a structure that we all transiently had in our developmental process called the node, N-O-D-E. In other species, it has other names, but in mammals, we call it the node. And it's a very transient structure that develops very early in our developmental history. And by early, I mean like when we are days old in utero. And the purpose of this structure, the node, is to instruct cells where to go. So one of the things that always fascinated me as a scientist is, we all start out as this single cell, the fertilized egg, i.e. the zygote, and it undergoes many rounds of cell division, create a ball of cells, and then it separates into a cluster that will form our bodies, and a separation of some cells that will form things like the amnion and the chorion, etc. After that separation occurs, the collection of cells that will form our bodies flattens into a sheet, but we're not just a flat sheet of cells. Like, we have all of these wonderful things, appendages and organs and all of that. But how in the world do these cells know where to go? It is because of the structure called the node. The node is like the air traffic control center And what it does is it literally emanates instructions, molecular signals that tell a cell, oh, you go this direction, you go this direction, you go over here, no, you're going to do a deep dive and go over here. And I just really love that structure because after everybody has received their instructions and cells have started rearranging, and now we have multiple tissue layers, and now we're on our way to forming organs and all of that, that structure, the node, it is the progenitor to the central nervous system. So what does that mean? In our adult forms, in our postnatal forms, we still carry something that tells us where to go. It's our nervous system, which is like really big now, like in the media and pop science and all of that. But it really is true. Our nervous systems can be used as guides to getting to know ourselves, to getting to know where it is appropriate for us to go and to not go. And it comes in the form of emotions. So emotions are data from our nervous systems. And so I like to use emotions, if you will, as trailheads into exploring what is right for me, what is not right for me. Does that make sense?
Oh, completely. I love that.
We have a part of ourselves that carries this deep, deep embodied wisdom. And essentially, culture and society have done a really fine job of teaching us to ignore it and not to work with that. I view emotions very differently. Like on my wooiest day, my most metaphysical days, I will tell you that I think that emotions are data from our soul. And what if we approached our emotions from that perspective? Is it true? I have no fucking clue. I can't prove anything. But if it works, why not?
Exactly. Well, there's so much more going, like you mentioned, in culture right now, thinking about like somatic healing and how much that is so important with our nervous system. And even with coaching, we, have the 3 areas we really focus on. And maybe Martha Beck also, she's such an icon in the coaching world of our thoughts, our emotions, and our actions, and how those are all interconnected. And in the past, we've always been taught that most of the way it hypothetically works is you think something, then you have an emotion, then you have a reaction or a response. When in general, it's more known and more discussed now about how our emotions are our center of what causes us to not only have those thoughts and have maybe repeated thought patterns or behaviors of the reaction, like that really does stem from the emotion that we have at our root in our center, like you said, in the node. So I love how you did connect all of that scientifically into then how you bring that into your clients, and showing them that the emotions are allowing them to like really deeply reconnect with themselves and starting from that point of discovery.
Yeah, and you bring up a great point. So there's actually a feedback loop with emotions. So you're absolutely spot on that we have a thought and then that elicits an emotion, but also emotions can elicit and affect our thoughts. So there's very much a feedback loop around that. And I really love the work of Candace Pert, PhD. She's no longer with us, but she was just a really phenomenal neuroscientist. And what I love about the work of Candace Pert is that she really put emotions on the map as physiological changes that happen in our body, and they happen not just in the central nervous system. So we tend to privilege the CNS, but actually emotions happen in every cell of our body. They're mediated by things like hormones and neurotransmitters. And so all of our cells are responsive to these things that are in the microenvironment. So we tend to think of just our central nervous system, but really it's our entire bodies. The beauty of it is that if you expand, you're thinking about the nervous system to the entire body, our bodies are much faster at detecting changes in our environments than our minds. And so that's where I really, really love the somatic work, is that, our bodies are giving us objective data about what's in our environment. And our environment can include our thoughts, by the way. So it's not just literally our physical environment. And so using that to kind of tune into what's going on. I want to bring up another person whose work I really, really adore. Is this okay? I'm just like rapid firing, trying out people. Okay, Carla McLaren. Okay, so she has a great book called The Language of Emotions. And so what I really appreciate about Carla's work is that she makes the point that every emotion carries a message for us. Now, we don't know what the particular message is, but we know, like, generally, different emotional families carry different messages. So, for example, fear, the message of the emotion of fear is get ready, there's a change in the environment. Anxiety, which is related to fear, is the message that anxiety carries is get ready for possible future change. So it's a slightly different, but if we can learn how to work with these emotions and to extract the message, like, oh, okay, I'm fearful. Okay, what is the change that's going on? We can start dialing into, the thoughts that we're having. And well, then what would make it better? How could I be better prepared for this? We also can use the body, i.e., the imagination. Oh, okay, this is what I'm afraid of. This is the potential change. Well, what are my options? Oh, if I imagine myself doing this in response, how does it feel in my body? Oh, no, I don't like that feeling. Well, let me try this option on. Oh, wait a minute. No, I could hold this one with some ground. Does that make sense? So it's really melding together the biology, the psychology, the sociology, and the metaphysics to really, I think, harness all of the valuable stuff that's underneath our emotions. They're there to help us. We're just not taught any of this.
Right. It's what I do love how you just brought this up is like there are so many different facets that pull into what you do as a coach and how you experience life and how you provide. And I feel like this is how we can change the language or change the outcomes for women in these life altering transitions, especially what you're doing with women, like how you pulled in metaphysics as well as biology, as neuroscience, using somatics and learning like the future pacing, like with visualization. That is something that I have done for most of my life. Like you and I were chatting line before we started recording, like a previous athlete, like that was something that helped me all the time. And it's something that I use with clients. But future pacing is part of even in NLP. We look at what all of our opportunities currently are, and then we try to expand our curiosity, something that you've brought up before, which really is empowering, giving us more creative opportunities, and then trying those on with visualization allows us to step in. And I just love how you even called out that what happens with is that emotional piece. And when you discuss the book that changed your life from Martha Beck and talking about how it asks you to slow down, I feel that that is one area that women really, even if they aren't diagnosed with cancer, if they're not even going through a transition, like you really want to get clear and see what is talking to you and how your emotions are speaking to you, is slowing down to feel that emotion and figure out what is it telling you. So I really appreciate you going into those details of like even the difference between fear and anxiety, because it reminds me even like back in the day, I was hanging out with a friend of mine who's a therapist, and she's like, oh yeah, when I work with kids, we have these little face sheets of like, what emotion are you feeling? and every face is different. And there's like how many different faces. But as an adult, it's also so fascinating to hear this little bit difference of what fear is versus what anxiety is. There's this slight difference there. And I very much appreciate you going through that whole discussion of like, just blows my mind once again. Like, I just love this conversation. So thanks.
Oh, I mean, I love talking about this stuff, Molly. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I want to say another thing, if I may, about
Go
the
for it.
fear family of emotions.
Mhm.
So this is also based off of Carla McLaren's work. What I love about how she approaches emotions is that there are different intensities of emotion. And so the goal is never to eradicate emotion, right? Although culturally we are taught to deny, suppress, power over, etc. Like everything but to fucking like feel the feeling, right? But anyway, here's the deal.
I love that.
Okay, so here's the deal is that the goal is not to eradicate the emotion. The goal is to feel the emotion and ultimately to soften it. So to bring it to a different level of intensity and curiosity, Molly. Curiosity is a soft form of fear. Curiosity is a soft form of anxiety. Curiosity is about embracing the unknown. It's about bringing in new information, but it is a so-called positive. I don't like positive and negative terminology around emotions. That's like cultural nonsense. But anyway, it is a positive form of fear if we are going to use that frame of reference. And so being able to teach women to soften their fear or their anxiety into curiosity is one of the ways that I approach working with emotions. All of these emotional families have softer forms. So, for example, anger, the soft form of anger is called confidence.
Ooh, I love that.
Isn't that good? Like good stuff. Yeah. Carla
my gosh.
McLaren, The Language of Emotions.
Yes, that is going on my reading list. And my husband's going to be like, but you already have 20 books. You haven't read this yet? No, but I need this.
I really do recommend that, as well as any book that Martha Beck has written. I mean, I know she has a new one coming out on anxiety. You know, a couple of years ago, it was The Way of Integrity. Like everything that she's written is fabulous. And then the other thing that you may not have heard of, I just want to put a shout out, Richard Schwartz, Internal Family Systems.
Yeah.
So have you heard of internal family systems? That's starting to become more known. Yeah.
I've had a few people on the podcast who have done internal family systems, and you know they've talked about divorce, narcissistic abuse. One of my closest friends has done internal family systems. She is more of a sex therapist and somatic mentor and intimacy coach. So yes, I'm becoming more familiar with it, and it is very fascinating. I don't know if I would dabble in, but I am very fascinated into that world too.
Yeah, I draw a lot on internal family systems, both working with myself and with clients. And so earlier when I said that emotions can be used as trailheads to getting to know ourselves, what I was alluding to is that, you know, we carry different parts in our psyche, and these different parts tend to have like go-to emotional states. And so using emotions as a way to also get to know all of those parts of ourselves, the parts that we love and the parts that we are still working on loving.
Oh yeah, exactly. Now that we have really such a wonderful dive into these opportunities of women really exploring their emotions, one of the programs that you have aims at helping women with body image and sexuality, like learning how to appreciate and love their body after everything they've gone through with treatment, it can be difficult and can affect romantic relationships. What are some common challenges that you see in general that women face in maintaining or rebuilding those romantic relationships after diet?
Yeah, so I think um, a lot of the common challenges for women in, their intimate relationships revolve around feelings of self-worth, deservingness, particularly when, in treatment or trying to recover from treatment, we are indoctrinated not to reach for support. We're indoctrinated to kind of put other people's needs ahead of our own. And, this is on top of what we are essentially taught about, what it means to be a woman and our appearance somehow ties into our feelings of self-worth and deservedness. So that's one area where, those are feelings that can really be worked through in terms of getting a woman to the point of feeling more comfortable about the body she's in at that moment, and that doesn't change anything about what she deserves from her intimate partner or partners. The other thing I think is, there's shame, there's, oftentimes diminished self-love, um, which then really dampens authenticity. And if we can't show up with authenticity and healthy self-love and self-respect, it is going to be even more challenging to try to make a connection with our partner or partners. So it's really just delving into whatever those emotions are that she's holding at the time. And it's really not about the relationship per se. It's really about helping her reestablish, if you will, homeostasis, her self-relationship, and getting that solid so that she can then be better prepared for that action. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, of course it does. The more we are grounded within ourselves, the easier it is to connect with others because we are just that when we have the foundation within ourselves solidified through the self-worth. Like I have 4 areas of self-transformation that I talk about, which is self-care, self-love, self-trust, and self-worth. And when those are all encompassing and maybe they're not all equally balanced, but they're growing together, it makes it so much easier to know that you can always come home to yourself, reconnect with yourself. And when we can do that individually, it makes it so much easier for us to show up authentically and have genuine connections, no matter if it's with a colleague or a friend, your mom, or even your romantic partner. So, because of the intimacy barrier or what might happen after surgery, like you are unable usually after surgery to have sexual encounters for a little bit of insane with chemo treatment. There's things that you can and I should not hypothetically do. But there's
I
things
don't know. I
that
did them all.
really okay, that's good. We can cut that from the podcast. If you want.
Oh no, I'm
You're good.
fully prepared to tell you how I started going to sex clubs to heal my body shame.
Oh my goodness. That's even crazier because like for me, I have yet to really show my scar. Like I've shown it to my husband, but I showed it to my parents because my father had throat cancer and he, we're talking about scars and I was like, yeah, it's kind of freeing to only to say it to my dad, to only have one boob. And I wish I would have had both removed, to be honest, because I would always now love to never wear a bra. But it also is a relationship moment with yourself of like acceptance of where you are and enjoying the scar, knowing that your body is healing you. It's trying its hardest to do so. And being able to then show up with your partner in these very emotional and intimate moments of being like, I know that I look nothing like I used to, slash, I don't have a body part that I used to have. I hope that you still love me for who I am. That is very much a area of exploration within yourself so that you can say confidently, like, this is who I am. And if things change. We have to flow and transform together in a relationship. So
Yes, yes, yes. I remember, so I was unpartnered. I got rid of the ex by the
yeah,
time I had my second cancer experience. But after the second one, I was particularly challenged. The first one, there was so much other stuff going on that, being attracted, like that was the last thing that was on my mind. But with the
right.
recurrence, I was in a very different place. And there was nothing that had really changed about my body, but I just fucking hated it. I was, I felt the betrayal. I was angry. I was grieving. I was just like a hot mess. And one of the things that I started doing early on that was helpful, and maybe it's like a thing, I've heard people call it mirror work. So maybe this is what it is. I don't know. But like the one part of my body that I could unequivocally love that in my mind did not have cancer was my hair. And
Mm,
so the one thing I could do was I could look at that part of myself in the mirror and I could brush the hair, I could put the oil in it, I could, and from there it went to, well, maybe I could like put on some lotion. But it was a process of really having to rediscover how to love and trust my body again.
yeah,
So,
especially with a reoccurrence, I can only imagine how much, especially the first time, putting in so much effort and being like the body can heal itself. I can help my body heal. We can move through this, and then feeling almost a sense of rejection or betrayal, like you mentioned, is just like, what? Why did that happen again, or whatnot? And things happen in mysterious ways, and sometimes that process leads us to a whole new form of transformation. And I love how you brought that out, especially when you mentioned, now I can't recall if we mentioned it before we started recording, of like how you're currently going through treatment and you're choosing something completely different, and that the treatment is and it keeps your hair. Now this puts so much the two and two together of how not only is this helping you reconnect with yourself and appreciate your body, but is now just that form of identity that when we go through treatment, when we have the surgery, sometimes for women, it's the loss of the breast can be that huge identity piece, and having to reconnect with self without having, you just found a whole new area to reconnect with yourself and saying, this time I'm not losing my hair. I'm staying here and doing this. And it also shows the work that you can become curious, like you said, and bringing out, where do I want to reconnect? How do I want to reconnect? And it's so helpful for women that are in this stage. And also like not only empowering, but looking up to you as, how can I do that for myself? So I know that your clients, maybe they won't listen or maybe they are listening, but like even just hearing this part of your story, maybe they don't know, or maybe they do, but knowing that there's going to be a way to expand and still love different parts of your body so that you can fully step into loving your whole self is remarkable for what clients and you have gone through as well. So
thank you. Thank you. The other thing that I'll add is that before I resumed dating and, my sex life, I resumed my sex life first with myself. And I don't
mm,
know if women know to start there. But before I could be comfortable with the changes in my body in front of a partner, I had to first learn to be comfortable myself and how to pleasure myself given the, altered physiology and all of that. And so spending some time working on self and relationships to self, I felt gave that really solid foundation so that when I was ready to get back in the dating world, that I approached it with the confidence and, you know, boundary, knowing that
Mhm.
I was worth receiving pleasure and respect and all of that.
Exactly. Not only with a boundary like that, but like you can give it to yourself. It allows you to say, this is right for me and this isn't right for me. You're not coming from a sense of lack. You already
Yeah,
have the sense of me and foundation. Be like, oh, it's just randomly thinking, oh, you can't actually give it to me, it seems like. So I can go home and give it to myself. Sometimes, being able to take it matters into our own hands is very powerful and empowering in itself. So as we continue this conversation, there are so many things that are coming up, but I'm curious, um, can you share any generalized or moments that you can think of women who have transformed their relationships for the better after their diagnosis? And what do you think contributes to this change?
yeah. So I think the commonality for women that have improved their relationships comes down to doing the boundary work, which you can't do that unless you have a sense of self and the confidence to know what is acceptable and not acceptable, and the confidence to communicate that to the people
Sure.
in our lives, right? So, yeah, boundaries. And here's the thing. I just want to like explain this for people who may be new to boundary work. It's not about controlling our partners. That's not what boundaries do. I think this needs to be reiterated and emphasized. Boundaries are about having that clarity of what I will accept and what I won't accept, and being able to very kindly yet truthfully communicate that, and to know with clarity what we will do if the people in our life choose not to accept or respect that boundary. So, really, boundaries are pre negotiated terms and conditions with ourselves, not with other people.
Yes, I'm actually on that boat with you. Like I am championing the boat right now because, yes, having to discuss boundaries with clients is definitely something I go through as well. But I love how you mentioned that with working through, the relationship aspect and really transforming your relationship, no matter where you're at, but especially with diagnosis, the boundaries you set with yourself allow you to set boundaries with others.
Yeah.
And really having that form of self-respect that you brought up is like respecting yourself to follow through with the boundary is huge. And you don't have to be really blunt or be like, if you don't do this, then this and this is. That's not a boundary. That's a threat. So it's
Yes.
not, and it's not. It's also with the emotions. How emotions have intensity, and our tone has intensity. So there's so many different factors on how to create boundaries that really protect ourselves and our integrity, but also really help our relationships stay focused and grounded and in a way that reconnects all of us. So thank you for highlighting that part.
Okay. The other thing that I would add to the conversation around boundaries is that, particularly in our most intimate relationships, oftentimes what the boundary is not obvious, right? As we're sorting through. And so I think it's important to recognize that sometimes it can take some time to figure out what that boundary is and how tightly we want to hold it, and to approach it from a win-win perspective. Like, I want you to get what is right for you, and I want me to get what's right for me. So how can we meet so that we're not disrespecting each other's needs? And so that's that's not an easy answer all of the time. Sometimes it takes time, sometimes it takes many, many conversations. But if it is rooted or grounded in the perspective of, I want us both to win, that I think is how we can best get to that spot of figuring it out.
I love that. That's so powerful, especially just knowing how much boundaries really can empower the relationship, as well as, like you said, it's almost harmonizing the relationship. It's not a balance. It's not teeter-totter. It just really encompasses what a relationship is supposed to be all about. Boundaries really does that.
Yes. I love that you view it as harmonizing, because really I think that that's what the whole fucking human experience is about.
Yeah.
Homeostasis is not static. It's not fixed. It is fluid motion. It is, oh, this is a little too much. Let me go over here. Oh, that's not quite enough. It's just this constant calibration of what's just the right fill in the blank. And so if we're too rigid with our boundaries or anything else in the human experience, we're just not going to enjoy it as much. And we're not ever going to really get to that sweet spot for us. We have to be willing to have some fluidity, whether it's boundaries or any other stuff.
Yeah. That's beautiful. I love that. I love just even how you were just moving back and forth. I know that people can't see that on the podcast, but just how you were moving, and it almost reminds me of being like rocked as a baby. Like there are little things like this to bring us back, harmonize in our life. So when you think about, in your experience, what is the most important thing for loved ones to understand about someone going through or recovering from cancer?
Oh, there's so many things. If I had to pick just one thing, okay, ring theory. Have you heard of ring theory?
No.
Around
let's talk about
support? Okay, so ring theory, this is from the psychology world. Can't remember the name of the person. Google it, or I'll Google it and whatever if you want a reference. But ring theory is about us centering ourselves. So me, the cancer patient, front and center. And then there, if you can envision a series of concentric rings surrounding that center. And these rings represent the other people in our lives. And so the people that we're most intimate with are in that first ring surrounding us. It's usually our intimate partner, maybe our bestie, family members, etc. And then you have that next ring of like really close friends, and then maybe you have like colleagues, and then you have acquaintances, etc., right? And so the idea around ring theory is, first of all, know where you're positioning people in your life. And then if you are in the center, you get to dump out, but the people on those outer rings don't get to dump in. So you always have to dump out to the next ring surrounding you. And this goes for like our caregivers who are somewhere in these rings, right? They can't dump to us. They have to dump out. Now, support always flows in. And so what that means is that the people on the outermost periphery, they're not necessarily front and center with the patient, but what they can do is they can support that next tier of people. And so the support filters in, and the human dumping goes out. And the directionality is really crucial. The other thing is knowing that at any time we get to actively decide where we want to place people in those rings. Like I've literally kicked people out of the fucking stratosphere. Like they're not even in my rings, right?
I do as well.
And there are people that, and there are people that it's like, no, you here. And, like maybe based on, culture or whatever, it might be unexpected, like, oh, that person got in that ring. Doesn't matter. The person in the center gets to decide at any given moment who is in which ring.
Yeah.
And they don't even have to be in a ring. It's okay to like not put them in a ring if you don't want to.
Right. And then it's like notifying them that they are in the ring. Do they know? Do they know that they're in the ring?
Good question. I don't know. I think what I would do is I would just send them a handout explaining ring theory or a link.
Now you are at level 3. You could move into level 2 of the ring, into the closer part, if you are able to help me do X, Y, and Z. It all kind of goes back to hypothetical competition sometimes in my head, but I don't need to put it there. But I love how you mentioned that, because it is really just helpful for people that are helping us to see where they fall in, where we need them to be. Sometimes people want to give so much and we're not ready to receive. And then the people that are closest into us, those intimate people in that first layer, that first round of ring, they might not be ready to give as much as we need to ask for. So it's really having to be aware of that, maybe as soon as you possibly can, to really be able to communicate your needs and desires for assistance when you're going through treatment.
Yes. The other thing I would add about ring theory is our partners should have their own set of rings.
Very smart. Yeah.
Anybody that we are intimate with, of course, they are affected by our diagnosis and everything that entails. But they are a separate person with their own separate set of needs, which may overlap on the Venn diagram, but really they're separate. And so they should have their own understanding and arrangement of their rings and their support system. So the people who are supporting the patient, they should not be getting their support from the patient. They should be getting their support from other supporters. Does that make sense?
Oh, of course it does. That is the end goal, right? Like that is such to me, when people can do that, that is very powerful, not only for the patient, but for the relationship in general. Because it allows that partner to have extra resources. I mean, they're not extra resources, but when you're, if the husband he needs that, also that communication, that intimacy, but not necessarily sexual intimacy, but like just he needs the emotional support. So looking for others to emotional support, whether that might be their family members or their friends, or, during my diagnosis, my husband's, his employer was so amazing. Normally my husband travels for work. And so they're like, hey, we will set it up so that you don't have to travel for 2 months and you could stay home and do XYZ type of work and help people from afar. And that was something that really weighed heavily on him, like knowing that he needed to be home and having that support from his employer, which may not be ring 1, it might be ring 4, really does allow him to redirect his attention towards things that A, I might need, or B, allows him to also express himself in other areas of his life with stress or worry about his job. So
I love this. I'm so glad that you had that experience, you and your husband. That's great. Yes. The other thing that I really like about what you're describing is that they didn't, the people on the periphery didn't reach out to directly help you, right? So they were doing this exactly the way they should. First and foremost, their focus was on your husband, and they were offering ways to support him so that he would then be more available to support you. And what I would say to people who know someone who's diagnosed and they want to help, if you're not sure where you might fall into these concentric rings, then don't reach out directly to the person that you want to support. Reach out to someone who is one of their supporters and saying, hey, how can I support you so that you have better capacity to give the support that you're giving? Does that make sense? And so that's what's meant by support filtering in. So that way the person in the center is not getting overwhelmed, and yet the support continues to build.
Yes, exactly. That is a great explanation and showing of different ways to support people going through this diagnosis and the treatment as well. So have you seen clients build new or stronger relationships with people after diagnosis that might also overlap into the ring theory that you brought up? And what do you think was key to forming these deep connections?
I think what is absolutely key to forming those deeper connections is really developing deeper authenticity with self. Really understanding what our needs are, understanding how to ask and reach for what we need to meet those needs, which we're not culturally taught nor encouraged to do. The more we know ourselves and are willing to share ourselves authentically, the deeper connection that comes with a bit of vulnerability. Not a bit, let's be honest, a shit ton of vulnerability.
Which is totally worth it.
It is, because what I've observed and what I've experienced is that if we can show some of that vulnerability, it is like a mainline invitation for the other person to also show some of theirs. And so it is that kind of dance of, I'm going to be a little vulnerable with you. Oh, okay, this landed well. I'm still safe. You still love me. Okay, everything's good. Oh, now you're going to be a little vulnerable with me. Oh, I'm going to hold that with the same love and compassion that you held me. And it's that back and forth, and it just continues to grow and expand or deepen. I don't know, whatever your favorite metaphor is.
Yeah. It ripple effects throughout even other relationships too, because when you're able to show up authentically with one relationship, it gives you the courage to also then maybe show up more authentically and have more vulnerable moments with other people. That's another beautiful way of authenticity and showing up with a little bit of vulnerability in your romantic relationships.
Yeah, because we start to get the data. We get the evidence of like, oh, if I do this in this way, look what happens. What if I try it over here? And all of a sudden, like, yeah. So when I work with clients, that's one of the frameworks is I love helping clients design and run experiments. So we don't just jump off the fucking cliff and like bare our souls. We start with little bits. How did that land? How do I feel? Am I still safe? Am I still feeling connected? Is this person reciprocating? Oh, okay, well, it passed all of that. Well, this is really good data. Maybe I can try being a little more vulnerable. And so it's that series of just try, see what the results are, see how they feel in you.
I love that. I love the little experiment because it just brings out the science.
I mean, I am a scientist.
But at the same time, it's just so fascinating. Once again, scientist, life coach, loving all the things. Before we end today, what do you want the ladies to know or take away from our conversation today?
Oh, okay. So women with a cancer diagnosis, here is the number one thing. If you take anything away from this, when you're facing a life-threatening diagnosis and everything that entails, there is no such thing as too much support. Reach out early. Work with a counselor or a therapist or a life coach. On the physical side of things, get palliative care involved ASAP. It's not for just end of life. It's about managing side effects and quality of life. There really is no such thing as too much support. Reach for it early, even though culture has told you not to put your needs first. This is the time to do it, and do it. Just do it. Reach.
Wonderful. Yes, we can always use more support than you actually can understand and know that you need. It's always something good to ask. I love how you incorporated that today. So please tell the ladies, tell everyone, anyone who's listening, how they can find you and where they can learn more about you.
Okay, so y'all can find me on my website. It is www.annramsdell.com. Please visit it. I love my website. It was a labor of love. I have a fabulous web designer who helped, design it, and I write all the copy myself, and it really is from the heart. So take a look.
Yeah, I actually do love your website. I love how back in the day I was also a graphic designer and into digital marketing. So I love how you have things laid out. It's very beautifully designed as well as perfectly structured in a way that I find easy to read, very informative, and really does showcase your personality. So if you loved listening to Anne today, definitely go check out her website to learn more about her and the services that she offers, especially if you have breast cancer diagnosis or someone in your life that does. If you are also interested in the nonprofit we mentioned earlier, I'm going to include links to Ashley Rass nonprofit called Rebuild a Bitch. And there's applications also for women to receive coaching. I don't know if scholarships have ended or whatnot, but this is just still always be aware of the resources available to you. So thank you, Anne, for coming on today. It's been a pleasure. I'm so glad we were able to connect, and I know you and I are going to stay connected.
Likewise, thank you, Molly. I just had a blast connecting and talking with you, and I look forward to more.
Thank you for joining me on the Reinventing the Arena podcast. I'm your host, Molly Connolly, a relationship coach devoted to helping women reinvent their love lives. Tap the subscribe button so you never miss out on an episode. You can always find me on Instagram at Reinventing the Arena or learn more from me on my website at reinventingthearena.com.